There we go. Perfect. So again, welcome to Markets of Philanthropy and Leveraging AI to Find Your Best Prospects. Today, we're happy to host Sarah TeDesco from DonorSearch. DonorSearch has been a strong partner of APRA Maryland for decades. We're really thankful for their support throughout all of the years of APRA and sharing great information with our constituents, and really just being a great resource and partner in the community. So let me just go ahead and pass it right off to Sarah to take it away.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And yeah, we love our partnership with APRA Maryland and all the wonderful organizations that are a part of it. It's just really exciting to be here and also have a chance to talk to you guys. So I hope this is a fun conversation, somewhat fun, a little bit engaging. I mean, there's a lot to cover. Some of it is information that you might know really, really well. Some of it might be new insights, but feel free to use the chat and contribute. It makes it a lot more interesting. So as Teresa said, I'm Sarah TeDesco. I'm the EVP at DonorSearch and also a co-owner. I have been part of DonorSearch for about 16 years now. So for as long as I know, we've been involved with APRA Maryland, as well as APRA International. So if we had a chance to connect while we were out there, it was great to see you. If not, hope to see you next year in Seattle. So for today, I have a quick outline of the topics that we're going to talk about. So I'll do a quick introduction to DonorSearch if you are unfamiliar. And if you are familiar, great to connect again. Also talk a little bit about the industry status and what we're seeing from the philanthropic trends. It's also kind of interesting here now that we're in this last quarter of the year, and maybe have a little bit of a side conversation about what you might anticipate for 2024. Then we'll talk about why major gifts, why are we here talking about this? You'll walk away with the markers of philanthropy. So some of those key concepts as to what you can look for when you're doing your prospect research and your screening. And then we'll talk about AI and how you can maximize that for building connections, as well as for major gift research. So with that, we will get started. So I wanted to just kind of start by asking you a couple of questions. How you would describe the state of the world in 2023. What have you heard about giving in the past few years? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What has changed in regards to donations for your organization or other organizations? So just think about those questions and feel free to use the chat. I'll go through and do a quick intro to DonorSearch, and then we'll come back to these, and I'd love to hear your responses. So with that, we are focused on providing premier donor search intelligence, data, and solutions to nonprofits of all shapes and sizes. Our goal is to help you all strengthen your financial capacity so that you have sustainability as well as scalability. Our values, and we live by these very much every day, is excellence, quality, innovation, collaboration, integrity, and growth. And what we found is that you really need each of these in order to achieve one or the other. So without excellence, you need to have collaboration and innovation. With integrity, we think about innovation, collaboration, as well as growth. So all of these we find are connected together. So DonorSearch is family owned and operated. I've known the CEO for a very long time, about 37 years now. And we have about 80 employees across 15 different states, so across the US. We serve over 10,000 active nonprofits and have integrations with about 40 different CRMs. We're also active Giving Institute members, and we're very much focused on making sure that we have the best technology stack. This is actually at one of the conferences. You may recognize some of these folks, but just one of the fun ways that we get together. So what some of our clients are saying about us is that we're an outstanding tool that would be an added benefit for any organization. So like I said earlier, we work with nonprofits of all different shapes and sizes. These are just a few of the 10,000 clients that we serve. So if you're ever looking to find out, what people are saying about us, I just recommend going to our website. There's plenty of different testimonials and stories about how people have used DonorSearch. And then we are also focused on this thought leadership. So, we're not just providing solutions for our nonprofit clients and partners. What we're focused on is bringing some of this really great information that can help you in your jobs. So we have what's called a mastermind series, which is basically a way for you to hear and learn about different nonprofit leaders in the sector and all of the really cool stuff that they're doing or some of the best practices. There's also CFRE credits that are associated with that. Nathan Chappelle, who's one of our great colleagues, he is actually the author of The Generosity Crisis, which maybe you've heard about or even read. But it has this great look at, what's going on in the world of philanthropy and what are some of the ways that we can overcome some of those challenges. So as we get into the meat of this conversation, I just kind of want to start with this mantra of, we can choose to be affected by the world, or we can choose to affect the world, right? That's why we all work in nonprofits. That's why we're here talking about major gifts. It's why we do the work that we do. We want to make the world a better place, not only for ourselves, but also for this legacy that we leave behind. All right. So state of the industry. So remember those questions we brought up earlier. So how would you describe the state of the world in 2023? What have you seen in regards to giving or heard about giving in the past few years? Is it increasing or decreasing? What has changed in regards to donations for your organizations or other organizations? So this one is a great point that was just put into here about the increased uses of DAFs and other giving entities. Yes, 100%. We're seeing that everywhere. Increased giving amount, but decrease in number of donors. Yes, definitely seeing that as well as some of those mega donors. And if somebody else wants to maybe just contribute one thing, maybe how they see the state of the world today. A little scary, maybe a little chaotic. All right. Well, if you want to share, feel free. And what I'll do is I'll move over to our next slide. And yes, this slide is crazy busy, but what do you see on here? So we asked bard.google.com, right? So this is the other version of ChatGPT. If you're not familiar with bard.google.com, I highly recommend it. It is more accurate. It's also not like a paid subscription. So it's just another tool that can help you using that generative AI. So when you ask Bard, what's going on, they describe that the state of the world in 2023 is complex and challenging, facing a number of global issues, including climate change, economic inequality, political instability. And actually, when we did this was, a month or so ago. So it didn't actually take into effect some of the wars that we're seeing happening right now. We're also seeing in terms of giving, we're seeing an increase in digital giving. We're seeing a decrease in traditional forms of giving. So people are becoming more comfortable giving online. We're also seeing a rise in corporate donations, increase in donor advised funds. And then we're also just seeing, people still kind of overcoming the challenges that we saw in COVID. Actually, it looks like there's one more chat in here. So yep, increase in plan giving with undisclosed amounts, decrease in donors, more planned giving. Yep. So these are all sort of connected when we think about it, right? We're seeing that there's these major changes in how either people are donating. We're seeing our donor pool shrinking. People are being a little bit more anonymous. And then you have all of this other kind of extra intensity that's going on in the world. So we've seen this household decline in giving, right? So even just back in 2018, we saw that about a third of people had given less compared to the previous years. We see this is even more dramatic when we take a look at the Giving USA report. So Giving USA, if you're unfamiliar, is basically the go-to report when it comes to understanding charitable giving in the sector. It's made up of organizations across the nonprofit space. So it would be DonorSearch, it would be your consultants, it would be some of the CRMs, Blackbaud, all kinds of organizations that come together. So that way we have a clear understanding of what's going on in the charitable sector. So one of the biggest points that was kind of dramatic, right, was that we saw 2.5 million households gave less in 2022 compared to 2021. Total charitable giving has only fallen 3 other times in the last 40 years in perspective, and that was in 1987, 2008, and 2009. When we think about those economic climates, there's a lot of context that we can roll up into that. We also see that the decreases in giving can affect the ability for a nonprofit organization to meet their needs and fulfill their mission. So again, past couple of years, when you think about COVID, the effects on higher education, where did that leave folks? Stock market also dropped, which is probably one of the contributing factors here as well. And then we saw that individual giving as an overall has declined by 13.5%. So this individual giving sector, that's typically 70% and has been for a long time. It dropped to 69% not too long ago, and now is at 64%. So everything that you guys are saying is what we're also seeing in terms of the analysis of overall. We also see that the changes in contributions have changed dramatically as well. So there's been an increase in giving to international affairs, likely due to the Ukraine war that started in 2022. We also, when you think about what's going on today, it's likely that we'll probably see some of those effects as well in 2023 when that analysis will come out in July of 24. Giving to religion has also increased. Giving to education dropped a little bit, and then environment and animals have dropped a bit, but still higher than pre-COVID. So what you're seeing is a bit of the shape of philanthropy is changing, right? You're seeing that you have less people giving, you see a shift in priorities, and then as you all were describing, is that how people are donating is also changing. We're also seeing the rise of the mega donors. So Mackenzie Scott, paving the way for women everywhere, setting a new high standard of wealth as well as contributions given. She plans to make unrestricted $1 million donations to 250 nonprofits. So to date, she's given $14 billion. And typically when I'm doing this presentation live, there's at least a couple of folks in the room who have actually applied for those grants. So best of luck to them. I think it's a pretty small percentage that actually get chosen, but it's always great. So we see this change in mega donors as well. So never before has there been this sort of influx of people giving. And then speaking of the mega donors, right, we have this, what we call an unequal United States of America. So looking at the inequality that's going on. So overall, when you take a look at the US, the average annual income of the top 1% is $1.3 million. The average income of everybody else is only $50,000. So what that means is the top 1% take home 21% of all of the income in the US, or in other words, the top 1% make 26.3 times more than the bottom 99%. So when, again, we start thinking about this philanthropy and this change, this middle class is literally shrinking, right? You have less people that have the means as, even our top 1%. When you take a look at the income inequality in Maryland, just to put in perspective, because we're here in Maryland, right? The average annual income of top 1% is 1.1 million. Compared to income of everybody else is 63,000. So we're actually doing a little bit better than the US when it comes to equality from an income standpoint. But overall, it's still those dramatic numbers. So top 1% makes 17.8 times more than the bottom 99. So the question now becomes, right, why major gifts? why are we all here? Well, we're all here to talk about major gifts because it has this high ROI, right? It's this return on investment. Major gifts are the largest donation an organization receives. What a major gift looks like for your nonprofit is likely going to depend on factors such as your organization size, fundraising history, and average donation amount. So I'm sure many of you already know this, but just, so we're all on the same page, right? If you're talking about an ASPCA, their major gift might be $5,000. If you're talking about a university, maybe their major gift is $1 million, right? Or $2 million. It just depends on what sort of averages they're looking at, as well as the impact that that major gift is going to have on that organization. When you think about this, one of the dramatic pieces as well that we're seeing, right, is everybody knows that Pareto effect, right? I believe I'm saying that right, that 80-20 rule. So 20% of your donors make up 80% of the donations for your nonprofit. Well, that has shifted dramatically. And we're seeing this a lot when we do our analysis with our clients, either from a screening or from a DSAI review. What we'll see is that now 90 to 95% of most of the fundraising totals are going to come from only about 5 or 10% of the donors. In some cases, that's even smaller, right? We might see it's only 2% of the donors are contributing the majority of the donations. It just depends on, what sort of diversity that you have within your constituency. It also depends on your geography, but also it really goes back to this income inequality that we're seeing, as well as that there's been this shift in how people are making donations. When you start thinking about how prospect research is critical to identification of major gifts, and of course, making your fundraising goals, there's no question that prospect research is critical. So this was a study that was done by MarketSmart a few years ago. And what they looked at was they wanted to see those organizations that use prospect research, how often did they make their goals for major gifts fundraising. And then it also looked at those organizations that did not use their prospect research. So those that used prospect research, they met or almost every year met their goal 84% of the time. Those that use prospect research that seldom or never met, that was only 15%, 16%. Those that did not use prospect research that almost met their goal was 65%, and then seldom or never was 35%. So basically, if you ever come into a conversation and there's a question about prospect research and the contributing factors for major gifts, you guys are critical to it. Without it, it's a D or a fail, right? When it comes to making those goals. When you use prospect research, you're passing, right? You're even doing better than passing. So this whole purpose, right, is to understand your high affinity donors, your high capacity donors. You want to work with the people that are engaged, the people that are going to make those donations to you. You don't want to spend time in this low capacity and low affinity, especially as we take a look at all of the challenges. So the question comes back, right, this true shape of philanthropy. So how do we know them when we see them? Who are at the top of your donor pyramid? Who do you decide to spend time with? That's really where we're coming here together. And this is also, I'll just do a little plug for Nathan's book, Generosity Crisis. We'll go into those, deep dive into those different factors, but also it's building the relationships, right? So you can give your major gift officers, or you can have these great portfolios that indicate the best wealth, best capacity. But if there's no connection that's actually built, or there's no relationship, then it's going to be much harder. It's basically this cold call, right? So how do you start to identify who those folks are? So question to you guys, feel free to use the chat or not. We can just keep moving along here. But what do you think are some of those major gift characteristics? And I think a lot of you probably know these already, but feel free to chime in. I'll do the do. Just kidding. All right. Well, you can also just say, I told you so when we move on to the next one, or feel free to like these things. So we actually did a study, the DonorSearch study. We've done this twice now, and we looked at $5 billion worth of known charitable giving over 400 nonprofit organizations. And we wanted to determine which factors made someone more or less likely to give. When DonorSearch was founded, our focus was not just on wealth, it was philanthropy first. So we actually have the single largest philanthropic database in the world. And what we want to be able to do is say, okay, these are the people that are known for their philanthropy as well as their wealth. But the question is, is that really important? Which factors are most important? So some great thoughts here: consistent annual fund donors, corporate foundation donors. Absolutely, Elizabeth. And that actually leads us very nicely into these predictive markers. So these are in order of importance, and you can find these markers through your screening. You can find these markers inside of your internal database if you have them. You can also find these markers if you're doing your own research on a one-off basis. High engagement in the org or served population. Absolutely, Sarah, and we will highlight even more of that in just a little bit. So the first one is giving to your organization, right? So everyone kind of knows this. And that was also what was shared, your annual fund donors, people that are engaged with you, but have actually made a gift to your nonprofit. So if you think about it in terms of modeling or scores, this would be like your RFM score, right? So recency, frequency, total amount of money that they've given to your organization. Some pros to that is that information is already in your database. It's free. Some cons to that is you're relying on your database, right? You have to make sure that that information is inputted correctly. You could have had change of leadership, so maybe it's not really reflective of what somebody could potentially do within your organization. And it doesn't really tell you anything new. It just tells you what they have done within your organization. So it's a really great way to get started, like especially if you're new to a nonprofit. Also great for understanding, your plan gifts, etc. Giving to others is actually the second most predictive marker for future and major gifts. So this would be giving to other nonprofits. This is actually why we created the single largest philanthropic database, is we wanted to be able to show you where your donors are giving elsewhere and also what size donations they have been making. So again, if you are, say you're at a university and you have an alumni that's also giving to a science museum, you see that they've also given to one of their children's high schools, and maybe also, another type of museum. By understanding where they've made those contributions, you start to identify what's interesting to them. You can start to make some assumptions about, what sort of capacity they have, especially if that donation is larger than the size that they've given to your organization. And you can even start to, within the information, see how does that connect to maybe the engagement they have within your university. So if they're a graduate of, say, the English program, but they have done all of these donations to science museums and maybe their children's museums and maybe to environment or animal organizations, maybe there's a way that you can connect what you're doing or even appeal to a different interest to them. So it's just a way to get a fuller understanding of them. Any donation that's made of $5,000 or more is going to be a strong indicator for major gifts in the future. Your third most predictive marker here are those that are the trustees of a foundation. So the great thing about this too, right, is you've identified another vehicle that the potential donor can make a gift through, right? So if you ask Sarah TeDesco to make a $500 gift today, she might say no, but if you ask the DonorSearch Foundation for a $500 gift, they're likely to say yes because maybe they have deeper pockets, right? And they also have a certain amount of money that they have to give away each year. You can also start to see some of that alignment of where the foundation is giving compared to that individual, as well as understanding some of that new interest, right? Political giving is also important. There's a lot of, I guess, I wouldn't say questions, but there's a lot of discussion about how to use political giving, right? So we include it. You can actually turn it on or turn it off. within your tool. But one of the things that it does do is it does tell you sort of what circles they run in, as well as the wealth factors that they're in. So if you find somebody that's given to the FEC cumulative $15,000 or more, it's a dead on marker for wealth and 5, 6, 7-figure gifts to other nonprofits. So that's without even looking at where those political contributions are going. It's just a matter of the totals. If you are trying to understand, sort of the complexities of your constituent space, it is helpful at times to see where those political donations are going. And also what we see is that if you do have like very wealthy donors, they'll often give to both sides of the party. So it's just a matter of, making sure their needs are met when whoever is elected will help them. Real estate information is also a helpful component. Again, it's not as strong as giving to others, but it's something that, is critical to understanding your wealth capacity and understanding your pockets of donors, where they live, etc. So we actually use Core Logic, and we bring in all kinds of great values that go along with your real estate, including the mortgages, how large the home is, how does it compare to other homes in the area. When you're thinking about what is a wealthy home, real estate is often one of the more volatile factors, especially now. But if you have real estate that's $2.5 million or more, that's typically a dead on marker for wealth as well. So that would be reflective of like a California, that would be reflective of like a Hawaii, a New York. So those areas where real estate is super expensive. But if you're thinking about it and you're in Maryland or Ohio or Pennsylvania, you can actually just take a look at some of that zip code level and see how does it reflect compared to the area that you're in. And then our 6th most predictive marker here is business affiliation. So those that are SEC insiders, those that have their own companies. SEC insiders, it's only about 6% of the population, and the pockets that we see of them, they are in Florida, New York, some of them are in California. And what that means is that they are at the policy-making level of a publicly traded company, right? So these are folks that have money. They can, with the SEC insider data, the Form 4, you can actually dig in and see, who, how those stocks are attributed, what sort of options that they have, the number of holdings that they have, how much they earn. So maybe they were given 2,000 shares, and now that shares have, tripled in their worth, right? So you can see that people come into money very quickly. So again, all of this information is really helpful in understanding, kind of that perspective of who your donor is, who your prospects are. And then when you find your prospects that meet 1 or 2 or 3 or even all of these, you're having a better understanding of what sort of donor that they could potentially be for your organization. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask or use the chat, or any comments, or anybody that says, I told you so, I knew that already. But this is something that we live by and guide by. Of course, there's a million other factors that are important, but these are the ones that we find to be most predictive when it comes to identifying people that can make a major gift in the future. So the real question here, right? So can we do more? Yes, Sarah, I knew about those markers, or yeah, those are really helpful, but we were talking a little bit about engagement. RFM is really static. It doesn't tell me anything new that's happening. I know that there's this new, better technology. You were just using AI earlier. There's this charitable giving decline. What else can we do? So that is where we bring in the wonderful conversation, right, of AI. So getting started with AI technology. So AI is not new. We all are, it's kind of it's super, super hot topic, right? In the past couple of years, it's been a hot topic. At DonorSearch, we actually brought in artificial intelligence and machine learning in 2019, I believe, 2019 or 2020. So we started using it for our predictive analytics because we wanted to go beyond just the screening systems, right? But when you think about the for-profit side and you think about all of the companies that you are engaged with and purchasing things from, they've been using AI for many years. And just so that we're all on the same page here, right? So artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems, with this whole idea that there's no real limitation when it comes to using AI. So as a researcher, right, and as somebody that does data analysis, like you can have these huge big data sets, but it can be such a pain in the butt if you're like pulling from all kinds of different areas of siloed information. The beauty of AI is something that allows you to accelerate that process and allows you to be more efficient. So that way you can, you know, do more with less work, basically. So on the for-profit side, it's been in use for, you know, more than 20 years. We see this in healthcare, you know, something that's all on the top of our minds, right? With COVID, Pfizer used artificial intelligence also to help create the vaccine. We also saw this in diagnostic testing inside of healthcare. We also see it with transportation, right? So how does your Amazon package get there so quickly, right? There's AI, there's modeling that's included in there, but there's also the logistics, like how does a package get from one route to the other route? We also see this with e-commerce. So again, bringing it back to our favorite little store, Amazon, we know that they prompt us, right, with recommendations based on other input that we've, you know, inputted in the past, right, so that it learns what to expect from us. You know, same sort of concept here when you think about Netflix, right? Your recommendations on Netflix are based off of different shows that you've watched in the past. And if you think about how, you know, complicated the human mind is, right? You could be watching Gilmore Girls today and then a horror show tomorrow and then, you know, a sci-fi movie the next day. And it's, you know, okay, based on Sarah's complex, you know, entertainment you know, genres, you know, what are we going to recommend for her today? Then you have real estate, right? So this is something to help with the buyer journey that we're seeing more of. Travel, of course, you know, what are the recommendations for travel, as well as, again, thinking about different routes. And then from a banking system, we're actually seeing this used in fraud. So there's a lot of really great uses for it. And it's something that we've all been engaging with for a long time, but not necessarily on the nonprofit side as part of our efficiencies in our processes. So again, if we were in person, I would ask you all to raise your hand and feel your, you know, share your feelings. But the question is, you know, what is your relationship with AI? Do you interact with AI in your daily life and do you use it at work? So this was actually a study that was done a few years ago, and it was before sort of this like, what would you call it? Like even almost like a gold rush to AI. So these are the stats that we're really looking forward to seeing more information come from. And actually there is an AI conference that's virtual called Fundraising AI Summit that I believe starts next, it's not next week, it is, let me tell you real quick. It is October 23rd and 24th that you can register for free for. And there's all different kinds of great content on there. But the questions that will be asked is, you know, do you interact with AI in your daily life? The answer to that is yes, every day. Every day you are helping train a model, you are helping with an algorithm, whatever you're using your phone, whatever you're watching, even your search engines, right? You're helping train that. When you use Google AI, the Bard, or if you use ChatGPT, you're also helping train that model because you're inputting data, right? And it's learning from that. So in 2019, the question was, do you use AI at work? The nonprofit specific AI is reaching less than 23% of nonprofits. So super curious to see how that has changed in the past 4 years and if more people are using it. So when asked about feelings, right? So 75% believe AI will make their life easier. 73% of nonprofits believe AI innovation aligns with their belief. 83% believe there needs to be an ethical framework in place before wider adoption. Again, another plug for that Fundraising AI Summit. There's actually a framework that's in place and has been created by 90 different people, 90 different companies, I believe, that have all contributed to that. And then that 52% of people are afraid of AI. So if you are nervous about it, and there's a lot of crazy headlines out there that are really scary, if you think about like this responsibility, this ethical framework that needs to be in place, you are not alone there. So some of the ways that people in nonprofits are using AI at work is prospecting screening, predictive behavior. This is what we'll focus on today, and I'll just share with you some of the ROI that we're seeing as well as how it works. Also talking about, direct online giving, automating routines and tasks, so scheduling meetings, analyzing data, keeping in touch with donors, personal outreach, and detecting fraud. So all different ways that people can use it. And this is a quote that I think is really important for us to remember, right? So AI will not replace you. People using AI will. And that's, thinking about, how are you harnessing this new technology around you to make sure that you're more effective at your job and, better than the next person, right? Because when you think about this younger generation that's coming in, they're born with AI, right? Like they're born with the laptop and the phone in their hand. And it's something that, we need to make sure that we feel comfortable with. So some of these, sorry about that. Some of these amazing stats that we're seeing, and actually they're more than these, but I just wanted to do a little teaser. It's actually the first time that anyone is really seeing these. So kudos to you guys. But what we have seen with our nonprofit organizations, we work with about 50, what we would call enterprise clients that are using AI. We have more that are using not the custom AI solutions. But what we have seen is that some of the mature nonprofits have experienced 85% increase in response rate and a 20% increase in average gift size. So when you think about this, this is pretty dramatic numbers, right? If you could increase your average gift size 20%, as well as increase your response rate by 85%, what sort of raise does that look like for you? I hate to put it in terms like that, but it's something that, if you think about it, what's in it for you? How does that give you more leverage within your organization or give you, some of those lifestyle benefits? DSAI clients also find that repeat donors will give 5 to 10 times the average gift size with a custom model. So what we're also seeing is that 5 to 10 times of an average gift size is something that can come out of these models and scores. So this is actually going beyond, right, those 5 markers of philanthropy. This is going beyond that static screening. This is where we're going to talk a lot more about engagement data and how that is really helpful in understanding who is not only likely to make a gift to you this year, but also who can do more and how do we focus on the right people. And then another stat in here that I put in here as well is that, not only is it going to increase your gift size, not only is it increasing your response rates, but we're also seeing that the process is saving an enormous amount of time. So when it comes to DSAI clients, they're getting their major gift donors through move management process 17% faster. This is based on how people are like spending their time either going through large amounts of data. You think about your systems being siloed, breaking it down. How long does it take for you to take a look at like the giving transactions, maybe the alumni engagement that they have? Maybe it's also taking a look at what events that they went to, as well as the emails that they were given to, as well as doing your typical research, right? So it's pulling all of this information together. So that way you have sort of this complex understanding of your donor in a very short amount of time. So more to come on that later. When you think about what the process is, right? So how do we actually get to that? What we want to do is we want to focus on not only the giving levels, but we also want to focus on the big data sets that your organization has. So you think about your giving transactions, you think about the email marketing, you think about volunteers, you think about how they're interacting with your organization, and you want that dynamic scoring, right? So you don't want just the one time every 5 years, how does this person look, from a screening? but how does this person look on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, on a daily basis? How is their interaction with your organization changing? And what does that mean for your major gift officer portfolio? When you have, again, think about it in terms of what we were talking about before, is how does your engagement with, this is very simplified, but how does your engagement work with like what you're watching on TV? Is it based on the time of year? Is it based on a mood? Is it based on a recommendation? And it's taking sort of that concept and, looking at it in the lens of, you guys have all of these different ways that a donor could potentially engage with you. Let's see, how does that reflect when it comes to the donations to your organization? So this is another way to understand this sort of path to acceleration. Is the traditional models, right, are just looking at the wealth data, just looking at giving patterns, and then recency, frequency, and money. What we want to do is we want to bring in more. So we want to look at the giving patterns, the experiences, some of the wealth indicators, and then of course also some of that demographic data. So consumer information, some of that modeling information that maybe your marketing team is even using. But it's another way to basically get this complexity out in the open. Another thing too, I'll just plug in here as well, is so we have custom AI solutions, and then we also have what's called DSAI Insights, which is basically a mid-level tier. And then what we provide for all of our nonprofit organizations is what's called an MLR score. So it's the most likely to respond. And what that means is that we've substituted out this recency, frequency, and money. But we haven't substituted, it's still there because people still like it, but we've kept that in there, but we've also added a machine learning component that basically is the mature version of an RFM. So if you're thinking about how to get started, or maybe you're not really, feeling good about RFM anymore because it's so static, you can actually bring in a little bit of machine learning and AI and take a look at what we would call most likely to respond, which is your MLR score, which is looking at the engagement history over a period of time for just one of the models. This is another way to understand, what we're looking at here. So you have your, excuse me, one second. You have your characteristics of donors and non-donors, which are quantified, right? And so your orange are your donors, and then your blue are your non-donors. And you're looking at, all of these different indications as to, what is likely to make somebody a good donor to your organization. So it's over 140 different fields that are compiled together, and 1,000 different features or machine learning features that are per individual. So what that means is, like, you think about it, you have 1,000 different points per individual to start to understand, what are the outcomes of the engagement that people are having within your organization. One of the really cool findings that we found is that there was an email that was being sent out from an alumni organization, and the subject line was like, come do like a free coffee chat with us. And what we found was that after doing this AI analysis and looking at all of that, anybody that got that email was less likely to be a major gift or to be a donor for that organization. So it was interesting when you take in something from the marketing side and couple it with your giving history or your volunteer information or even swag, that all is going to have some sort of component to it and indicating as to whether or not they're likely to make a gift to your nonprofit. Another one that we saw with higher ed, and actually I think it's discussed inside of the generosity crisis, is the parking ticket situation for universities, which is funny. I went to University of Maryland, and I actually am at University of Maryland still working on my MBA, but they give some pretty hefty parking fines. And one of the stories is that if one of the students was graduating, but they weren't allowed to get their diploma until after they had finished paying their parking fees. So there's this question as to, well, that impacted their relationship with the school, the engagement with the school. So how does that impact, when you're taking a look at these different features and characteristics for people that are going, oh, go Terps, go Terps. Tough loss though. So we'll still say that from the Ohio State. Let's see. And then again, like taking a look at the dynamic likelihood scores. So here you have, basically you want to understand, well, how likely are they going to give over time? And the beauty of machine learning, right, is that you don't have to calculate that information by yourself in your macros, in your own Excel. This is where the DonorSearch AI component comes into play, where we're doing the heavy lifting for you, right? Like we're doing these recalcs for you, so that way you don't have to do that part. Of course, you can modify it on your own. Everybody likes to do those kinds of things, but that's a way for you to manage your own portfolios and get into the stuff that's really interesting or into those amazing results. So as we come to the finale here, so we come to a close shortly, bringing in this information is just an idea to give you, what would be used. So CRM summary data, transaction data, experiential data, so looking at alumni, clinical, special events, wealth and demographic and consumer information, social media. And it's all looking to see, who is going to fit into this high likelihood and high wealth, this box over here. So that way you're not focused on those that are the low likelihood and the low wealth, right? And again, the use case for this, right, is that you have decline in giving, you have new technology that's available, you have more economic challenges and instability that we're seeing. So how can we use this new technology to help us do better? From major gift size, what we're seeing is that it's helpful for the gift discovery calls, so referrals, like if you're in a healthcare organization, you're able to prioritize those that have a high rating based on engagement, but maybe not yet a donor. So who are you putting into your cultivation strategy that has this high capacity? Also looking at gift portfolio reviews and refreshes. So if you think about, I never have enough prospects or people want new leads kind of thing, this is where that dynamic scoring comes in and solves that problem for you. And that way you don't have to, go back to the drawing pool or drawing board or go out and do, new research on something. It's something that's constantly being refreshed for you. And then also understanding your gift, major gift philanthropic interests, reprioritize based on DSAI, as well as philanthropic keywords. And then, of course, you can use it for gift events and visits. So that way you can spend your time really effectively. And then one last sort of representation, because there's a lot of questions about how it all works, right? So it's basically your nonprofit donor data, right? Like your big donor data set. Then you have these external philanthropic data sets. So using the world's largest charitable giving data set, using wealth information, demographic information, social media information that we can find. Maybe your organization also has social media information. You can couple it together. And then basically pull it into this modeling, which is then reviewed with your team to make sure that it's on par with, your expectations. And then you're able to have these deliveries, which are pretty amazing, coupled with a data visualization tool that allows you to segment, data drop, do your exports, whatever you need to do. So today we covered developing strong relationships and connections. Obviously, that's the core part, right? That's the human part of our job, making sure that we are connecting with people that care, not just wealthy people or people that we have a hunch on. We're maximizing technology to get you to the donors who can and will make a responsible difference. And responsible AI is going to be key, right? Like we see that there's a lot of people that are fearful, but also, these big questions about what is the framework that we're going to be held to and what is responsible. And then there's also this thought about what happens in 10 years from now. So, or I guess a little bit more than 10 years, but in 2035, right? What does the scene look like? From now until then? And it's a big question, but there's a lot of literature out there, a lot of content that is definitely looking ahead and seeing how much, that exponential growth is going to look like. So these are just the key takeaways, and I won't go through them now, but I did want to give you guys a gift for those that have attended and are new to DonorSearch. We did want to give you 500 record screening as well as 30-day access to DonorSearch online. You don't have to stop by a booth because I'm here with you. Just jot down your information, mention this APRA webinar, and then we'll get you all set up so that way you can check us out and learn more and hear more about the sort of amazing results that we have. So with that, I will hand it back over to you, Teresa. And if you would like to connect, feel free to connect with me. I'm also on LinkedIn, and this is all of my information. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, feel free.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's always great to kind of hear like kind of what's the newest things going on in the world, whether the new research, because especially as fundraising professionals, we talked before everyone hopped online, we're pulled in so many different directions. Being able to have this information is just fantastic. And I will say that we just switched CRMs, and I'm now in my professional life a DonorSearch client again. And just having all of that information at our fingertips has been fantastic. So please, if you guys have any questions for Sarah, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I did mention briefly right before we started that we are having another webinar next week, kind of building off utilizing data and building relationships. It's strengthening the partnership between data and frontline professionals, and that's in partnership with AFP Western Maryland. So I'm going to drop that link here in the chat. So if you guys want to join us next week on the 19th, please feel free to join us. And it looks like we do have one question in the chat for you. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. So right now, great question, Lauren. So right now, the data that we have is just in the US, but I can put a teaser out there that we will have data shortly coming to you that goes beyond the US, so that we're super excited about. This is actually a project I've been working on for the year. So as soon as that is out, we will be ready to show that to you. And then the question is, does the organization's data live inside DonorSearch's environment once it's uploaded? So it's sure. So it's a couple of answers to that question. So if you have an integration with DonorSearch, if you have an integration with the CRM like Teresa was just talking about with Virtuous, that DonorSearch data lives inside of your CRM, but you also have the ability to access that information inside of DonorSearch Prospect View platform. So a lot of our clients live in both worlds. They decide how they want to use it, what's best for them, and then they move accordingly. So do you have SOC 2 Type 2 certification? We do not have Type 2 certification, Mary, but we do have the SOC 2 compliance. So all of our security is passed with all of our, hospital systems that we work with. And we're using the most secure systems as well as servers that are possible and that are required. We also have extremely high insurance to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of the healthcare organizations that we work with. So if you have more specific questions, or if you're working in healthcare, we're happy to help answer that with you. Yes, and then the question from Melissa, will you share the percentage slide again? The one about 90 to 95% of giving is coming from small portion of the donor base. Absolutely. Let me see if I can go back. That was really just an ROI slide. We're close, there you go. Yes. To Lauren's question, does DonorSearch meet GDPR regulations? Absolutely. We are held to some very high standards and want to make sure that your data is safe and secure as well. And have you studied ROI on the non-bespoke AI? Forgetting the name of it. I'm not sure, Sarah. I'd love to dig in with you some more. But I think the answer is no, but I would be happy to study more of that ROI with you. But sure. So, and if feel free to reach out to me or connect with me again on email, LinkedIn. I'm happy to go beyond these conversations because that's the fun part, right? Is going
Hi,
outside of it.
Sarah. It's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Just gonna unmute myself. Hi. Yeah, so what I was wondering, because I know DonorSearch really has an emphasis on providing the best tools available to all organizations, regardless of budget.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, I mean, it would really help your use case, and it would be fascinating to look at if obviously that ROI increase is most impressive on the bespoke models, on the bespoke AI. But if you could also show, there's a nice bump in using the like again, I said I don't know the name of it, but it would be cool to see.
Yeah, I will absolutely bring it back to the team, and I will definitely ask the question. And Sarah, if you have your information, if you want to put it in there, I can do a follow-up with you and see if I can get you more on that. I know it's kind of scary to put your information in the chat, but you can also send it directly to me. Oh, there it is.
I'm APRA Maryland membership chair, so I'm cool with it.
Less scary.
Our information's out there anyways.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, any other questions?
I actually do have one more, Sarah.
Yeah.
So with I think was it the Giving USA report that everyone was just talking about earlier in the year, and the drop off in donors, and really the organizations engage in major gifts, and even me as someone in prospect development thinking about, wow, like have we penned ourselves into a corner where we have partially created that one slide that we just looked at again, where 95% of the money is coming from 5% of the donors. Is there an opportunity for DonorSearch AI specifically to create a broad base of support again and build out a more, broader base and show some growth from that?
So let me make sure that I got your question correctly. So the Giving Institute, yes, we see this decrease in giving. The question is, can DSAI help with the acquisition or the growth of your database?
Yeah, of not just major gift, but
yes,
annual and that's it. Yeah.
Yes, and my apologies that I did not say that clearly. Yes, we absolutely do. That's one of actually that's one of the one of the popular ways that people are using it is to grow their database. So we actually have, the custom models that are also looking at acquisition score. You're looking at retention as well. So it's not just about, getting those first time donors in, it's about making sure that they give that second time gift too. So it's looking at it across that way. You also can use it for like your lifetime value, your upgrade models, sustainer scores as well. So if you're building a sustainer program and you're looking at some of that foundation there, that's another great way to use it. In fact, I know this is going a little off topic because you were just talking about acquisition and growth, but the Smith Center, who has a great testimonial on our website, they actually use DSAI sustainers to help build out their program because they were suffering a lot of the losses during COVID. So Carol has a great testimonial about that and how they were able to recover. So it's just another use case for you. But yeah, great question. And Sarah, what organization are you? I know you're part of APRA, of course, but which nonprofit are you with?
I'm with the George Washington University.
Oh, awesome.
My previous employer, we were DonorSearch clients, so now we are not DonorSearch clients at George Washington. But I still appreciate going on, learning what you're doing in this space.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're working with some folks there too, or maybe we were at GWU. But yeah, I'm happy to follow up too with some more information there. Cool.
All right, so looks like we're at time. Thank you again, Sarah. It's always great hearing from you and hearing your
Yeah.
insights into the field. So this session was recorded. We'll send out the link to everyone that attended, just so you want to go back and reference it. And everyone have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Teresa. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.